I gave my daughter a brand new car at her party as a birthday surprise. But when the party was winding down, I went out to the patio and saw her mother-in-law at the wheel and her husband teaching his mother how to drive. Then my daughter got up from the table right at that moment and did nothing. Absolutely nothing. She just stood there, watching, as if I didn't exist, as if my sacrifice was worth nothing. That was 3 hours ago. I can still feel the cold of that moment running down my back. I can still see Carol's smile, James's mother, my son-in-law, sitting in the driver's seat. I can still hear her laugh, a sharp, irritating laugh that pierced me like a knife. My name is Helen. I am 69 years old, and I just realized something I should have understood a long time ago. To my own daughter, I am nothing more than a resource, a wallet with legs, an old woman who is still useful for something, paying bills, gifting cars, keeping quiet. But they had no idea I had everything ready. The party started at 6 in the evening, 40 people in Catherine's backyard. My daughter. Pink balloons hanging from the trees, tables decorated with cream-coloured tablecloths, soft jazz music coming out of the speakers. Everything seemed perfect. Everything seemed normal. I arrived at 5:30. I was wearing a subtle olive-green dress, the one I always use for family events. Nobody greeted me at the door. Nobody asked me if I needed help carrying my bag. I went in alone. I sat alone. I waited alone. Catherine was busy tending to the guests. James, her husband, was talking to her cousins near the barbecue grill. Carol, her mother-in-law, was sitting in the center of the main table, as if she were the hostess, as if it were her house, as if it were her party. I watched everything from my corner. I've always been good at watching, quiet, but attentive. For years, I learned to keep silent, not to bother, not to ask for space. I learned that my place was on the side, that my value was in what I could give, not in what I could do. 30 minutes passed before Catherine approached me. She had a glass of white wine in her hand. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. She asked me if I was comfortable. I said yes. She smiled. An automatic, empty smile, the kind you give out of obligation. Then she went back to the others. James didn't even look at me. At 7, when everyone was sitting down to eat the roast beef and mashed potatoes, I got up and asked for the floor. The noise decreased. The conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt the weight of 40 pairs of eyes on me. I took a deep breath. I took the keys out of my bag. The car keys, a new car, brand new, silver color. That cost me $22,000. $22,000 that I saved for 3 years. $22,000 that came out of my Social Security and pension, from my occasional jobs, from my sleepless nights, wondering if one day my daughter would look at me again as she used to. I walked toward Catherine. I handed her the keys. Her eyes widened in surprise. Everyone applauded. There were shouts of excitement. Someone said, "What a generous mother." Another said, "Catherine, you are so lucky." She took the keys. She hugged me. A short, cold, calculated hug. Then she turned to James and showed him the keys. He smiled. That smile that has always given me the chills. That smile that hides something dark. Carol got up from the table and walked toward them. She took the keys from Catherine's hands without asking permission. She said something in a low voice. James nodded. The three of them went out to the backyard, where the car was parked. I stood there, watching them walk away. No one else seemed to notice. Everyone was still eating, laughing, drinking, as if nothing had happened, as if I didn't matter anymore. I waited 5 minutes. 10, 15. Then calmly, I left my plate on the table and walked toward the patio. My steps were slow, measured. I felt my heart beating fast, but my face remained serene. When I got to the patio, I saw it. The silver car, shining under the afternoon light. And there, sitting in the driver's seat, was Carol. James was next to her, leaning in, explaining how the controls worked. Catherine was standing next to the passenger door, watching, smiling, as if that were the most normal thing in the world. Carol turned the wheel. She gently pressed the gas. She laughed. She said something I couldn't hear. James laughed too. Catherine remained silent, but did nothing to stop them. I stood there, motionless, watching them. No one noticed my presence. No one turned to look at me. No one asked what I was doing there. I was invisible, transparent, non-existent. Then something inside me broke. It wasn't an explosion. It was a silent, deep, definitive break, like a crack in a glass that has endured too much pressure for too long. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just turned around and went back to the party. I sat down in my place. I drank a sip of water. I crossed my hands over my lap. And I waited. I waited for them to come back. I waited for them to sit down. I waited for them to keep pretending that everything was fine. Because I already knew the truth. And they were about to discover it too. It wasn't always like that. There was a time when Catherine looked at me with different eyes. There was a time when I was her whole world, and she was mine. She was born on a Tuesday in October, 35 years ago. She weighed 7 pounds. She had dark eyes, like her father. Black, curly, rebellious hair. From the first moment I held her in my arms, I knew I would do anything for her. Whatever was necessary. Without limits, without conditions. Her father, Robert, died when she was 7 years old. An accident at the factory where he worked. A poorly secured beam. A second of distraction. And suddenly I was left alone. Widowed at 36. With a little girl and no backup plan. I didn't have time to cry as much as I wanted. I didn't have time to fall apart. I had a daughter to feed, to dress, to educate. So I worked. I worked at anything, cleaning offices in the mornings, washing clothes in the afternoons, cooking in strangers' houses on weekends. I slept 4 hours every night, sometimes less. Catherine never knew how many times I skipped meals so she could have hers. She never knew how many months my shoes had holes so I could buy her new ones. She never knew that I sold the few pieces of jewelry I had, the ones Robert had given me, to pay for her private school. I wanted her to have what I never had. Opportunities, education, a better future. I wanted her to be someone, to not depend on anyone, to never have to bow before life like I did. And she did it. She graduated from college. She got a good job at a graphic design company. She earned well. She lived well. She was independent, strong, confident. I was proud. So proud that sometimes my chest hurt from so much emotion. But then James showed up. She met him at a work conference. He was a salesman for tech equipment. Talkative, charming, with that false confidence that men who need to impress to exist have. At first, he seemed polite, kind. He brought me flowers when he came to visit her. He asked me how I was. He respectfully called me Mrs. Helen. But I saw something in his eyes. Something cold. Something calculating. A look that evaluated, that measured, that sought weaknesses. I told Catherine to be careful, not to rush, to get to know him better before making big decisions. She got upset. She told me I was suspicious, that I was always looking for problems where there were none, that James was a good man, and that I should give him a chance. So I kept quiet. I swallowed my doubts. I smiled when I had to smile. I pretended when I had to pretend. They got married a year later. The wedding cost $8,000. I paid half. I sold my old car to be able to do it. Catherine didn't ask where I got the money. She just accepted it. As if it were my obligation, as if it were natural. After the wedding, everything changed. Slowly but constantly, like a silent disease that advances without you noticing. The calls became less frequent, the visits sporadic. The Sunday dinners, which used to be sacred, were cancelled with vague excuses. "We have plans, Mum." "We're busy, Mum." "Another day, Mum." James always had a reason, a work commitment, a family reunion on his side, a last-minute trip. And Catherine followed him. She always followed him. Then I met Carol, James's mother, a 66-year-old woman, mahogany-dyed hair, long nails painted dark red, expensive clothes that screamed money they didn't have. She spoke loudly, laughed louder, and treated Catherine as if she were her assistant. The first time I saw her, we were at a restaurant celebrating Catherine's birthday. Carol arrived late. She sat down without apologizing and started complaining about everything. The food was cold. The service was slow. The table was poorly located. Catherine apologized for things that weren't her fault. James laughed as if everything were a joke. I tried to start a conversation. I asked Carol about her family, about her job. She looked at me with contempt. She answered with one-word responses. Then she turned to Catherine and started talking to her as if I weren't there. That night, driving home, I felt a weight in my stomach, a feeling of danger, of threat, like when an animal senses that something bad is about to happen. The months passed. Things got worse. Catherine stopped asking me how I was. She stopped being interested in my life. When we talked, it was always about her problems, her needs, her money. Because yes, she started asking for money. At first they were small amounts, $100 here, $200 there. "It's just a loan, Mum. I'll pay you back next month." She never paid it back. Then the amounts increased. $500 for a car repair, $1,000 for a credit card debt, $2,000 for an alleged legal problem of James's that I never fully understood. I paid. I always paid. Because she was my daughter. Because I thought that if I helped her, she would once again be the girl who hugged me before bed, the teenager who asked me for advice, the young woman who told me I was her hero. But she never came back. At some point, I stopped being her mother. I became her bank, her solution, her emergency resource. And now, sitting at this party, seeing her mother-in-law drive the car I gave her, I painfully understand that I lost my daughter a long time ago. The question is, when exactly did she stop loving me? Was it gradual, or was there a specific moment? Was it my fault for giving her too much? Or was it their fault for teaching her to take without thanking? I don't know. And maybe it doesn't matter anymore. What matters now is what I'm going to do about it. 3 months before the party, I found something I shouldn't have seen. It was a Saturday morning. Catherine had asked me to go to her house to pick up some old clothes boxes she was supposedly going to donate. She said she would be out all day, that the boxes were in the guest room, and that I should just take what I needed. I arrived early. I rang the doorbell. No one answered. I used the key she had given me years ago, the one I never knew if I should keep or return. I went inside. The house was silent, empty, cold. I went straight to the guest room. The boxes were there, stacked against the wall. But when I tried to move them, One of them tipped over. The contents spilled onto the floor. Clothes, shoes, papers, lots of papers. I knelt down to pick them up. I didn't want to leave a mess. I didn't want Catherine to think I had been nosing around. But then I saw something. A manila envelope. Open. With my name written on the top. My heart started beating faster. I took out the documents. They were copies of the deed to my house, the house where I lived, the one Robert and I bought 30 years ago, the house that was the only thing that really belonged to me. The deeds were marked, underlined, with handwritten notes in the margin. I recognized James' handwriting. Estimated value, $95,000, no mortgage, in the name of Helen Miller. There were more papers, bank account statements, mine. I didn't understand how they got them. There were red circles around the amounts. My savings, my monthly Social Security check. All registered, all calculated. And then I saw something worse. A printed conversation. Messages between James and Carol, dated 2 weeks earlier. James. The old woman has more than we thought. The house is worth almost $100,000, and she still has savings. Carol. Then we have to speed things up. Catherine has to convince her to put the house in her name. For security. Tell her that. James. I already tried. She resists. She says she wants to maintain her independence. Carol. Well, insist. Or find another way. We can't wait for her to die. We need that money now. The words stuck in my chest like glass shards. I read the message once, twice, 3 times. It hurt more and more. I kept reading. There were more messages, many more. Catherine. My mum asked why we need so much money lately. James. Tell her anything. Say it's for investing. Say it's for our future, whatever. Catherine. I feel bad lying to her. Carol. Don't be stupid. She lived her life. Now it's your turn. That money should be yours anyway. Catherine. You're right. It's just that sometimes… James. Sometimes what? Don't tell me you're having second thoughts. Catherine. No. I just think we should be more careful. I don't want her to suspect. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. The paper wrinkled between my fingers. I felt nauseous. I felt anger. I felt such a deep emptiness that I thought it would swallow me whole. My daughter, my own daughter. She knew what they were doing. She didn't just know. She participated. She accepted. She justified. I sat on the floor, right there, surrounded by papers and lies. I didn't cry. The tears didn't come. It was as if my body had forgotten how to do it. I just stayed there, looking at the wall, trying to process what I had just discovered. How long had they been planning this? Months? Years? Was every loan they had asked me for part of the plan? Every cancelled visit? Every ignored call? I thought of all the times Catherine had told me she loved me. I thought of all the gifts I had given her. I thought of all the sacrifices I had made. And I wondered if it had ever been real, if it had ever meant anything to her. I kept the papers. I folded them carefully and put them in my bag. Then I arranged everything as it was. I closed the box. I left the house. I locked the door. I walked to the bus stop. On the way home, my mind worked at full speed. Options, possibilities, strategies. Because one thing was clear. I couldn't confront them. Not yet. If I did it now, if I told them I knew the truth, they would find another way to deceive me. They would be more careful, more discreet. No, I needed time. I needed to think. I needed a plan. That night, at my house, alone in the dark, I took out the papers and read them again, this time, calmly, with coldness. as if they were documents about a stranger, as if they didn't speak of my life, of my family, of my broken heart. And then something changed inside me. It wasn't a moment of clarity. It was something darker, deeper, a decision that forms in the parts of you that you never knew existed. If they saw me as a source of money, then I would give them what they expected. I would continue to be the generous mother, the naive old woman, the easy woman to manipulate. But while they played their game, I would play mine. And when the time came, when I had all the pieces in place, I would teach them something they had clearly forgotten. That underestimating a silent woman is the most dangerous mistake anyone can make. I called Denise that same night, my only true friend, the only person I could still trust. I told her, I need your help, and I need you not to ask questions yet. She answered without hesitation, tell me what you need. And that's how it all started. The plan, the revenge, the justice, or maybe simply my liberation. Denise came to my house the next day. She brought coffee and a cinnamon roll, as if it were a normal visit. But when I closed the door and showed her the papers, her face changed. I saw her turn pale. I saw her clench her jaw. I saw her turn from an understanding friend to a fierce ally in a matter of seconds. Son of a gun, she said, and she didn't apologize for the language. I didn't ask her to, either. We sat at the kitchen table. I spread all the documents in front of us. The messages, the accounts, the written statements. Everything was there. The complete evidence of a calculated, cold, systematic betrayal. Denise read each paper carefully. Then she looked at me with those grey eyes that had always seemed able to see beyond lies. What do you want to do? She asked me. I don't know, I answered. And it was true. The anger had given me clarity, but no direction. I knew I couldn't stay still. I knew I couldn't pretend that nothing had happened. But I didn't know how to proceed. I do know, Denise said. You need to protect yourself, legally, financially, emotionally, and you need to do it now. She was right. Of course she was right. But something inside me resisted. There was still a tiny piece of maternal hope that clung to the possibility that this was a misunderstanding, that Catherine really didn't know how serious it was, that I could still save her. Denise must have seen the doubt on my face, because she took my hand and squeezed hard. Helen, she said, listen to me carefully. Your daughter is stealing from you. Not just the money. She is stealing your dignity, your respect, the years you have left to live. And if you don't do something now, she's going to leave you with nothing. Do you understand? I agreed, because I understood. Because deep down, beyond denial and pain, I already knew it. That same afternoon, Denise took me to see a lawyer. His name was Sam Nelson. He had a small office downtown in New York. He was a man in his 50s, serious, with thick glasses and a way of speaking that conveyed confidence without arrogance. I told him everything. I showed him the documents. I explained the situation to him. He listened without interruption. He took notes in a yellow legal pad. From time to time, he would pause. In the end, when I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Mrs. Helen, he said, you are in a vulnerable position. If they have access to your banking information, if they know the value of your property, if they are planning to manipulate you legally, we need to act quickly. What can I do? I asked. First, protect your assets. Change bank passwords. Revoke any notarized power of attorney you may have signed. Make sure no one but you has access to your accounts. Second, document everything, every loan you've been asked for, every unfulfilled promise, every suspicious message. Third, prepare a new will that reflects your true wishes, not what they expect. I felt dizzy. It was too much information, too many decisions, too fast. And there's something else, Sam continued. If you really want to understand how deep this goes, if you want to know exactly what they are planning, you will need professional help. Someone who can investigate without raising suspicions. A detective? Denise asked. Exactly. 2 days later, I met George Miller, private investigator, a former police officer, a man in his 60s with a stern face and a gaze that didn't miss details. He worked out of a small office that smelled of old coffee and paper. I explained what I needed. I wanted to know everything about James, his finances, his debts, his business. I wanted to know if Carol was involved in other scams. I wanted to know if Catherine was truly an accomplice or just a manipulated victim. George accepted the case. He charged me $1,500 up front. He said he would have results in 3 weeks. Meanwhile, I had to keep acting normal. I had to see Catherine, talk to her, pretend that nothing had changed. I had to smile when she called. I had to accept her excuses when she cancelled plans. I had to keep being the naive mother they thought I was. It was the most difficult performance of my life. Catherine called me a few days later. She needed money again. $800 to repair the refrigerator. I said yes. I transferred the money without asking questions. She thanked me briefly and hung up. I wrote down the transaction in a notebook. Date, amount, purpose, everything logged. I changed all my passwords. I opened a new account at a different bank. I transferred half of my savings there. I left enough in the old account so they wouldn't suspect, but not enough for them to do real damage. I visited a notary. I updated my will. In the previous version, Catherine inherited everything. In the new one, she would only inherit a fraction. The rest would go to charitable organizations, to senior centers, to organizations that helped older women abandoned by their families. The notary asked me if I was sure. I told him I had never been more sure of anything in my life. 3 weeks later, George called me to his office. He brought a thick, brown folder, full of papers, photographs, screenshots. He sat across from me. He opened the folder, and he started talking. James had debts, lots of debts, maxed out credit cards, unpaid personal loans. He had even borrowed money from loan sharks. He owed more than $40,000 in total. Carol was worse. She had a history of minor scams. She had been sued twice by tenants she had tried to wrongfully withhold security deposits from. She had worked on pyramid schemes. She had restraining orders from 1/2 of her other children's partners. And Catherine. Catherine knew everything. The messages between her and James were clear. She knew about the debts. She knew that the plan was to use my money to pay them. She knew they were lying to me, and she had decided that she was fine with it, that I had lived enough, that my money was more useful in their hands than in mine. George showed me photographs of the 3 of them meeting in coffee shops, in restaurants, planning. There were audio recordings of phone conversations where they spoke of me as if I were a problem to be solved, an obstacle, a nuisance. "I'm sorry," George said. "I know that's not what you expected to hear." But he was wrong. It was exactly what I expected to hear. Because deep down, I already knew it. I just needed confirmation. I just needed proof. "Is this enough to legally protect me?" I asked. "More than enough," he replied. I paid the rest of his fee. I took the folder. I left that office with something I hadn't felt in months. Control. That night, alone at home, I opened the folder again. I looked at the photos of my daughter. My beautiful daughter. The girl I had carried in my arms, the teenager I had consoled during her first heartbreak, the woman I had applauded on her graduation day. And I didn't feel anything, just a cold void where love once was. I closed the folder, I kept it in a safe place, and I started planning Catherine's birthday party. The party that would change everything. The party where they would finally stop underestimating me. The car was an idea Denise had. We were sitting in my living room one Tuesday afternoon, reviewing options. I wanted something forceful, something that would make it clear who they really were. But I didn't know how to do it without seeming vengeful, without seeming cruel, without seeming like the villain in my own story. You need to give them exactly what they expect, Denise said. You need to be the generous mother one last time. So generous that they can't resist. So generous that they trust completely. And then, I asked, then you take everything away from them all at once, in front of witnesses, so they can't deny it, so everyone can see who they really are. I thought about her words for days. Give them what they expect. Be generous. Too generous. So generous that they would drop their guard completely. And then it hit me. Catherine's birthday was in 2 months. She would be 36. She had always wanted a new car. She mentioned it constantly. She complained that hers was old, noisy, unreliable. What better gift than a car? What better bait? I went to 3 different dealerships. I looked at models. I asked for prices. I did the math. I finally chose one. Silver color, 4 doors, brand new, $22,000. It was almost all the liquid savings I had left. But it didn't matter. Because it wasn't really a gift. It was an investment. The most important investment of my life. I signed the papers. I paid in cash. The salesman looked at me with surprise. Few women my age bought cars like that. So quickly. So determined. I told him it was for my daughter, that I wanted to surprise her. He smiled and congratulated me on being such a good mother. If he had known the truth, he probably wouldn't have smiled. The car would be ready in a week. In the meantime, I had to organize the party. And here came the tricky part. I had to do it in a way that seemed natural. I couldn't be the one organizing everything. That would raise suspicions. I had to make Catherine believe it was her idea. I called her on a Sunday afternoon. I told her I felt bad for not having seen her much lately, that I wanted to do something special for her birthday. Something big. Something memorable. You don't have to do anything, Mum, she said. But her voice sounded interested, curious. I know I don't have to, I said, but I want to. Let me organize a party at your house. Invite whoever you want. I'll take care of everything. The food, the drinks, the decoration. Just tell me how many people. There was silence. I could hear her thinking, calculating, surely wondering how much money she could get out of this. Are you sure? She finally asked. Completely sure. Well, if you insist, it would be about 40 people. Is that okay? Perfect. Let's hang up. I smiled. The hook was set. For the next few weeks, I became the perfect mother. I called Catherine every other day to ask about the party. What food did she want? What music? What kind of decoration? She gave her opinions. I wrote them all down. It made her feel important, listened to, loved. I hired a catering service. I chose the most expensive menu: shrimp cocktail, barbecue ribs, gourmet salads, imported desserts. $1,200 just for food. I hired a DJ. $300 for 4 hours. I bought decorations, balloons, streamers, table centerpieces, lights, another $200. In total, the party cost me almost $3,000. Added to the car, It was $25,000, virtually all my liquid assets. But every dollar spent brought me closer to my goal, and the goal had no price. Sam, the lawyer, helped me with the legal part. We prepared documents, certificates, proofs, everything I would need for the final moment. We kept it in a black folder that I kept with me all the time. George installed discreet cameras in Catherine's house, small, almost invisible, strategically placed in the garden, on the patio, in the living room. Catherine wouldn't notice them. No one would notice them, but they would record everything. "Are you sure you want to do this?" George asked me when the installation was finished. "I have never been more sure of anything," I replied. Denise helped me rehearse. Yes, rehearse, as if it were a play. We practiced what I would say, how I would say it, the tone of voice, the body posture. It had to be perfect, calm, controlled. No tears, no screams, no emotions that could be used against me. "You have to be ice," Denise said. "No matter what they say, no matter how they react, you are ice." I practiced in front of the mirror, over and over, until my face showed nothing, until my voice didn't tremble, until I could say the most painful words with the same tranquility with which I ordered coffee. 3 days before the party, Catherine called me. She sounded excited, almost euphoric. "Mum, you have no idea how much I appreciate everything you're doing. Truly. I know I haven't always been the best daughter, but I want you to know that I love you very much." The words pierced me like knives, because she sounded sincere. Because for a second, just a second, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe there was a possibility that everything was a misunderstanding, that we could still fix this. But then I remembered the messages, the secret meetings, the conversations where they called me the old woman, where they talked about my death as if it were a convenient solution. "I love you too, honey," I said. And it wasn't entirely a lie, because I still loved the girl she had been. I still loved the memory of who she could have been. I just no longer loved the woman she had become. The day before the party, I went to pick up the car. It shone under the sun. Perfect. New, expensive. The salesman handed me the keys with a smile. "Your daughter is very lucky," he said. "Yes," I replied. "She is." I drove the car to a parking lot near Catherine's house. I left it there, covered with a tarp. No one would see it until the exact moment, until I decided it was time. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake looking at the ceiling, reviewing the plan over and over. Every step, every detail, every possible reaction. Denise had told me I could still stop, that I could still cancel everything, that I could still forgive. But I didn't want to forgive anymore. Forgiveness was for those who regretted. And they didn't regret. They only regretted not being faster, more efficient, more discreet. I got out of bed. I looked in the mirror. I saw a 69-year-old woman, wrinkles around the eyes, grey hair, tired hands. But I also saw something else. I saw determination. I saw strength. I saw someone who had nothing to lose. "Tomorrow," I said to myself out loud. "Tomorrow, everything changes." And so it was. The day arrived with a clear sky. No clouds, no rain, as if the universe had decided that nothing would interfere with what was about to happen. I woke up at 6 in the morning, not because of the alarm, but because my body could no longer pretend to be asleep. I had spent the whole night in that state between wakefulness and sleep, where thoughts mix with nightmares and you don't know what is real. I showered. I dressed carefully. The olive green dress, the one I always used for family events, the same one I had worn for dozens of birthdays, graduations, celebrations. I wanted everything to seem normal. I wanted no one to suspect that this time it was different. I put on light makeup, a little powder, a touch of coral lipstick. Nothing exaggerated. Just enough not to look sick. Not to generate unnecessary questions. At 9, Denise came to my house. She brought coffee and a long, silent hug that said more than 1,000 words. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No," I answered honestly, "but I'm going to do it anyway." We reviewed the plan one last time, each step, each moment. Denise would be at the party, but as a normal guest. My accomplice could not be obvious. I couldn't raise suspicions. Her job was to observe, record discreetly with her phone from different angles, and be ready to intervene only if something went terribly wrong. George would be outside, in his car, monitoring the hidden cameras, recording everything, making sure we had evidence of every second, every word, every reaction. Sam would be available by phone, with all the legal documents ready, prepared to act if necessary. At 4 in the afternoon, I drove to the parking lot where I had left the car. I uncovered it. It was still shining. Perfect. Immaculate. The most expensive trap I had ever set in my life. I drove it toward Catherine's house. I arrived at 5:30, half an hour before the party officially began. I parked the car on the street, far from the house, still partially covered. No one would see it until I wanted them to. I walked to the entrance. I rang the doorbell. Catherine opened the door. She was wearing a cream-colored dress. She looked beautiful, radiant, happy. She hugged me. A brief, superficial hug, but enough for any observer to think we were a normal mother and daughter. "Mum, thanks for coming early. Can you help me with a few things?" "Of course." I entered the house. The smell of freshly prepared food filled the air. The catering had arrived early. Everything was ready in the kitchen. Covered trays, stacked plates, sparkling glasses. James was in the backyard, arranging the tables. He saw me and nodded his head. Not even a verbal greeting. Just that minimal gesture, as if I were part of the furniture. As if my presence was so insignificant that it didn't deserve words. Carol arrived 15 minutes later. She came in without knocking. She greeted Catherine with effusiveness. She hugged her. She gave her a gift wrapped in gold paper. Large, arrogant, surely empty inside like her. She looked at me carefully. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. She just assessed me with those cold, calculating eyes and moved on. I took a deep breath. Ice. I had to be ice. The guests began to arrive at 6. Catherine's cousins, co-workers, neighbours, friends I hadn't seen in years. They all brought gifts. They all smiled. They all acted as if this were a genuine celebration and not the setting for an execution. I sat in my assigned place. A corner of the main table. Not in the centre. Not near Catherine. On the edge. Where the elderly are placed when they no longer matter, but still have to be present out of obligation. Denise arrived at 6:12. She looked at me from afar. An almost imperceptible gesture. Everything is ready. Everything is working. The cameras are recording. The food was served at 6:30. Shrimp, meat, salads, everything exactly as I had requested. The guests ate, they laughed, they talked, the music played in the background. Everything was perfect on the surface. Everything was rotten underneath. At 7, when everyone was seated, eating, relaxed, I got up. I felt all eyes turn to me. I felt the weight of 40 pairs of eyes waiting, wondering what the old woman would say, what sentimental speech the selfless mother would give. I breathed deeply. I took the keys out of my bag. The car keys. Shiny. New. With the silver keychain that had the brand logo engraved on it. I walked toward Catherine. Slowly. Each step measured. Each movement calculated. The silence deepened. The music seemed to drop in volume. Or maybe it was just my perception. Maybe the whole world had stopped to witness this moment. I stood in front of her. I held out the keys. I held them in the air between us. "Happy birthday, honey," I said. My voice sounded calm, controlled, without emotion. "I hope this gift serves you well." Catherine opened her eyes. She looked at the keys. Then she looked at me. Confusion, surprise, disbelief. "Mum, what is this?" "A car. Brand new. Silver color. It's parked outside. It's yours." The silence broke. Applause, shouts of surprise. Someone said, "What an incredible mother." Another said, "Catherine, you are so lucky." Catherine took the keys. Her hands were shaking. She hugged me. This time the hug was longer, tighter, almost desperate. "Thank you, Mum. I don't know what to say. It's too much." "Nothing is too much for you," I replied. The words came out mechanical, rehearsed, perfect. James approached. He took the keys from Catherine's hands. He examined them. He smiled. That smile, that damn smile that had always given me the chills. "Let's go see it," he said. It was not a suggestion. It was an order. Catherine sat down. Carol got up from her chair. The three of them walked toward the door, outside, toward the car. I stood there, watching them walk away, feeling how everyone else returned to their conversations, to their food, to their indifference. I waited 5 minutes, 10, 15. No one noticed that they had taken too long. No one asked what they were doing. Everyone was busy enjoying the food I had paid for, the party I had organized, the generosity I had shown. Then I got up. I left my napkin on the table. I walked toward the backyard, slowly. No rush, as if I were just going to get some fresh air. But I knew exactly what I was going to find. Because I had planned it. Because I had anticipated it. Because I knew these people better than they knew themselves. I reached the patio, and there it was. The scene I had imagined hundreds of times. The scene I had waited for, with a mix of horror and anticipation. Carol was sitting at the wheel of the car. James was leaning toward her, showing her the controls, pointing at the dashboard, explaining how the sound system worked. Catherine was standing next to her, watching, smiling, as if this were the most natural thing in the world, as if the car were theirs, as if I didn't exist, as if my sacrifice meant nothing. I stood there, motionless, watching them. The hidden cameras were recording. Denise's phone was recording. Every second was recorded. Every word. Every gesture. Every betrayal. Carol turned the wheel. She laughed. That sharp laugh. Unbearable. James laughed too. Catherine remained silent, but she did nothing to stop them. She didn't say, "Wait, this car is for me from my mother." She didn't say, "This isn't right." She didn't say anything. And at that moment, something inside me closed definitively. The last door, the last hope, the last remnant of maternal love. I turned around. I went back to the party. I sat down in my place. I took a sip of water. I crossed my hands over my lap. And I waited. I waited for them to come back. I waited for them to sit down. I waited for them to keep pretending. Because now came the final part, the part they had been waiting for without knowing it, the part where they would finally see who I really was. They came back 20 minutes later, the three of them. Catherine with her cheeks flushed with excitement, James with that satisfied smile of someone who just got exactly what he wanted, Carol with a glint in her eyes that churned my stomach. They sat down in their places. Catherine raised her cup and offered a toast to me. "To my mother," she said, "to the most generous person I know." Everyone raised their cups, everyone toasted, everyone drank, and I smiled. A small, controlled smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Thank you," I simply said. The party continued. Dessert was served, chocolate cake with strawberries, $300 from a French bakery. Catherine blew out the candles. We all sang. We all applauded. Everything was so normal, so perfect, so fake. At 8:30, when the sun began to set and the garden lights turned on automatically, I got up again. This time I didn't have keys in my hand. I had my phone. And on my phone, I had something much more valuable than a $22,000 car. I had the truth. I walked to the center of the garden, where everyone could see me, where no one could ignore me. I raised my hand, asking for silence. The DJ turned down the music. The conversations stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began. My voice sounded calm, serene, as if I were about to give a sentimental speech from a proud mother. "It is important for me to share this moment with the people Catherine considers important in her life." Catherine smiled. James nodded. Carol looked at me with that expression of polite boredom that people have when they wait for someone older to finish speaking. "I have been a mother for 36 years," I continued, "and during those years, I have given everything I had. My time, my energy, my money, my love, everything. Because that is what mothers do. They give without expecting anything in return." Some people sat back down. Others smiled warmly. Denise looked at me from her table. Her eyes said, "Go ahead. I'm here. You are not alone." "But recently," I continued, "I discovered something interesting. I discovered that not everyone values sacrifices the same way. Some people see love as an obligation, others see it as an opportunity." The atmosphere changed, subtly, like when the air gets heavy before a thunderstorm. Catherine frowned. James tensed up in his chair. Carol stopped smiling. I took out my phone. I connected it to the sound system the DJ was using. I had practiced this with Denise. I knew exactly how to do it. The DJ looked at me confused, but he didn't object. "I want to share something with you," I said. "Something I found a few months ago. Something I think everyone should hear." I touched the screen. The first audio began to play. James' voice filled the backyard. Clear, unmistakable. "The old woman has more than we thought. The house is worth almost 100,000, and she still has savings." Silence. Absolute silence. As if someone had pressed the pause button on life itself. "Mum." Then Carol's voice. "Then we have to speed things up. Catherine has to convince her to put the house in her name." I heard held breaths, whispers. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Catherine stood up. "Mum, what are you doing?" I didn't respond. I touched the screen again. Another audio. This time it was Catherine, her own voice betraying her. "I feel bad lying to him." And Carol answering, "Don't be stupid. She lived her life. Now it's your turn. That money should be yours anyway." Catherine turned completely pale. James got up suddenly. "Turn that off, now." but I didn't turn anything off. I touched the screen one more time. The next audio was a conversation between James and Carol, more recent, 2 weeks ago. If she doesn't hurry up and die naturally, maybe we have to help the process. A nursing home, some place where she can't control her money. Carol laughing. I like the way you think, son. The murmurs turned into choked shouts. Several people got up from their tables. A woman I didn't know put her hand over her mouth. An older man shook his head in denial. Denise had taken out her phone. She was recording everything. The reactions, the faces, the collapse in real time. Mom, please. Catherine walked toward me. There were tears in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of regret or just shame at being discovered. Let me explain. It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems, I repeated. My voice was still calm, cold, ice. Then explain it to me. Explain it to everyone. Explain how for months you planned to steal from me. How you lied to me every time you borrowed money. How you let your husband and your mother-in-law talk about my death as if it were a convenient solution. I didn't, she pleaded. I never wanted to. They pressured me. They pressured you, I repeated. And you gave in, over and over without a second thought, because it was easier to betray me than to stand up to them. James walked toward me with aggressive steps. Enough. This is our house. Get out of here. Now. I laughed. It was a short, dry laugh, without humor. Your house? This house is in Catherine's name. But do you know what else is in Catherine's name? Nothing. Absolutely nothing else. Because everything she has, every piece of furniture, every appliance, every penny of her bank account, comes from loans she asked me for and never returned. Loans that total more than $35,000. I took papers out of my pocket. Documents, receipts, bank transfers, all printed, all logged, all with date and signature. I have proof of every transaction, of every lie, of every manipulation, and now all of you are witnesses. The guests were in shock. Some murmured among themselves. Others looked at Catherine with expressions of disgust. One of her cousins got up and left the garden without saying a word. Carol finally found her voice. This is ridiculous. You're a crazy old woman making things up. No one is going to believe you. I touched the screen again. This time it wasn't audio. It was video, recorded by the hidden cameras George had installed. The video showed Carol and James in the kitchen of this very house. It was 3 weeks ago. I had gone to drop off food and they didn't know I was recording them. In the video, Carol said, "When that old woman gets too much in the way, we send her to a nursing home and sell her house. Problem solved." James replied, "Catherine has to sign the legal papers first. Without that, we can't do anything." Carol smiled. I almost convinced her. It's just a matter of time. The video stopped. The silence that followed was so dense it could be cut with a knife. Carol tried to speak. That was taken out of context. Context? I interrupted her. What context makes planning to evict someone from their home acceptable? More people got up. More people left. The party was disintegrating before my eyes, and I was still standing. Firm. Unbreakable. Catherine slumped into her chair. She was crying openly now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Please, Mom. Please." I looked at my daughter, the girl I had carried in my arms, the teenager I had comforted, the woman who had betrayed every principle I tried to teach her, and I didn't feel anything, just emptiness. "Your apologies mean nothing," I said, "because you don't regret what you did. You only regret being discovered. James tried to grab my phone. Give me that. You have no right. I stepped back. Denise stepped between us. Other guests also approached, forming a protective barrier. George had entered the garden, tall, imposing, ready to intervene if necessary. Don't touch me, I said firmly. Don't you dare. The garden was practically empty now. There were only about 10 people left, those closest to Catherine, those who wanted to see how this ended. But this doesn't end here, I finally said. This is just the beginning, because the best is yet to come. Catherine looked up, confused, scared. What? What do you mean? I smiled. A real smile this time. A smile of pure satisfaction. Wait and see. I took the black folder out of my bag. The same one Sam had prepared. The same one I had been carrying with me for weeks, waiting for this exact moment. I opened it slowly, deliberately, letting the tension grow, letting everyone who was left in the garden wonder what else could follow everything they had already witnessed. For the last 3 months, I started. While you planned to take everything from me, I was also busy. But unlike you, I didn't plan to steal. I planned to protect myself. I took out the first document, an official sheet with notary seals. This is my updated will, signed and certified 2 months ago. In the previous version, Catherine inherited everything. My house, my savings, my belongings, everything. Catherine raised her head. There was a flash of hope in her eyes, as if she thought she could still be saved, as if she believed that the right words could undo what she had done. In this new version, I continued, Catherine inherits exactly $10,000, not a penny more. The rest of my assets, valued at approximately $90,000, will be divided between 3 charitable organizations: homes for abandoned elders, shelters for older women without family, legal aid centers for victims of financial abuse. Catherine's face was utterly crushed. James swore under his breath. Carol got up so fast that her chair fell backward. You can't do that, she shouted. That's your daughter's inheritance. It's her right. No, I replied calmly. Glacial. It's my money. I decided what to do with it. And I decided it would be more useful helping people who genuinely need it. People who were betrayed by their own families. People like me. I got another document. This one was thicker, with more seals, more official. This is the deed to my house. As you can see, it is still completely in my name. No mortgages, no liens, without any kind of legal power given to anyone. I looked directly at Catherine. 2 months ago, you asked me to sign a power of attorney. You said it was just for precaution, so you could help me if I ever got sick. Do you remember? Catherine didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. I signed that document, I continued. But what you didn't know is that immediately afterward I went to my lawyer and formally revoked it. The power of attorney you think you have is worthless. It is a piece of paper without legal value. James approached. His face was red with anger. Damn old woman. You fooled us. No, I corrected him. I protected myself. There is a difference. You tried to fool me. I was just smarter. I pulled out more papers, bank account statements. I also closed my main account, the one you knew about, the one Catherine used as a reference when she needed to know how much money I had available to borrow from me. Catherine's eyes widened in horror. What? I opened a new account at a different bank. I transferred all my funds there 10 weeks ago. The old account has exactly $500, enough to keep it active, but nothing more. So all the money you thought I had is still mine, completely out of reach, completely protected. Carol was furious. She trembled with rage. You planned all this. You set us up. Yes, I admitted without remorse. Exactly. Because you underestimated me. You thought I was just a stupid, weak old woman. You thought you could manipulate me without consequences. You were wrong. I took out another document. This one hurt me more than all the previous ones, because it was the most definitive, the most irreversible. This is a car sale agreement for the car I just gave away. The silence was absolute. What? What do you mean? Catherine asked in a trembling voice. The car was never truly yours. I bought it under the name of a leasing company. I registered it under a special contract that allows me to recover it at any time within the first 72 hours. It is completely legal. My lawyer verified it. I looked at my watch. It's been 3 hours since I gave you the keys, which means I still have 69 hours to exercise my right of recovery. Catherine was speechless. No, you can't. You thought. You thought it was a genuine gift, and it would have been, if you had shown even a minimum of respect, if you had kept your mother-in-law from sitting at the wheel as if it were hers, if you had said something, anything. I took out my phone again. I called a number I already had dialed. Mr. Johnson, this is Helen Miller. Yes, please proceed with the vehicle recovery. Send the tow truck to this address. Right now. I hung up. Catherine stood up, shaking. Mum, no, please. The car. I need it. My old car is about to break down. Please. You should have thought about that before, I answered without emotion. Denise approached me. She touched my shoulder gently. Are you okay? She whispered. I nodded. I was fine. I was free. I took the last document out of the folder. This one was a letter, handwritten, from me. Written during one of those nights of insomnia, where I processed all the pain they had caused me. This is for you, Catherine, I said, holding out the paper. Read it when you are alone, when all these people have left, when James and Carol are no longer here, telling you what to think or what to feel. Catherine took the letter with trembling hands. What is it? It's my farewell, I replied. It's everything you needed to hear but never dared to ask. It's the complete truth. No filters, no pretense. I turned to leave. Denise followed me. George was already waiting for us at the door. Where are you going? Catherine asked desperately. Are you just leaving? Like that? I stopped. I turned to look at her one last time. Yes, I simply said. I'm leaving, because I have nothing to do here anymore, because you stopped being my daughter the day you decided that my money was worth more than my dignity. But I am your family. No, I interrupted her. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, respect, genuine love. You are not my family. You stopped being that a long time ago. James took a step toward me. If you leave now, don't come back. Don't expect Catherine to take you in when you're old and sick and need help. I laughed. A real laugh. Liberating. You think I'm afraid of getting old alone? I'm already alone. I've been alone since you came into our lives. The difference is that now I accept it. And I prefer it. I prefer honest loneliness 1,000 times over the company of vipers. Carol spat on the ground, a vulgar gesture. Desperate. You are a bitter woman, a bitter old woman who is going to die without anyone loving her. Maybe, I answered, but I will die with dignity, with a clear conscience, knowing that I owe nothing to anyone, knowing that I did not allow them to turn me into a victim. Can you say the same? I did not wait for an answer. I left the garden. I left the house. I heard Catherine calling me. I heard whispers. I heard screams. But I did not stop. On the street, the tow truck was already arriving. The driver got out and greeted me. I showed him the papers. He got in and began to prepare the equipment to take the car. Catherine ran out of the house. "No, please, don't take the car." But it was already too late. The car was hooked, elevated, carried away. And with it, the last illusion that something could be saved between us left. I got into Denise's car. George got into his own vehicle behind us. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw Catherine on her knees on the street. I saw James yelling. I saw Carol gesticulating furiously. But I didn't care anymore. They were no longer my problem. They were no longer my responsibility. They were just strangers I once thought I knew. Denise drove in silence for the first 20 minutes. I looked out the window. The streets passed. The city lights began to come on. The sky gradually darkened, as if the universe were closing one chapter and preparing another. I did not cry. I thought I would cry. I had imagined this moment so many times, and in every version, I ended up broken, sobbing, destroyed by the pain of losing my daughter. But I didn't feel any of that. I only felt relief, like when you finally let go of something heavy you've been carrying for years, like when you stop pretending that it doesn't hurt you and admit the truth. "Where do you want to go?" Denise finally asked. "Home," I answered. "For now." She felt it. She knew that "for now" meant something temporary. She knew that I had already made bigger decisions, decisions that I hadn't yet shared with anyone. We arrived at my house 40 minutes later. The house Robert and I bought 30 years ago. The house where Catherine grew up. The house full of memories that now felt like ghosts. We went inside. Denise made tea. We sat in the living room. George arrived shortly after with all the recordings backed up on a thumb drive. "Everything is here," he said, handing me the device. "Every audio, every video, every piece of evidence, in case you need anything else in the future." "Thank you," I said, and I kept it in a safe place, because even though I didn't plan to use it again, it was important to have it. It was important to know that the truth was documented, that it wasn't just my word against theirs. George left after a quick coffee. He charged me the rest of his fee, $500. I paid him without hesitation. It was worth every penny. Denise stayed. She stayed because she knew that even though I wasn't crying, even though I seemed fine, I needed company. I needed to remember that there were still good people in the world. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm going to sell the house," I answered. The words came out easier than I expected. "I already spoke to a realtor last week. She says I can get $95,000, maybe more." Denise didn't seem surprised. "And then?" "Then I leave, far away, to another city, maybe to another state. I want to start over, in a place where no one knows me as Catherine's mother, where I can just be Helen, a 69-year-old woman who still has time to live her own life." "Alone?" she asked gently. I smiled. "Not exactly. I thought maybe you wanted to come with me. If you wanted to. No pressure. But it would be nice to have company. Good company. From someone who truly values me." Denise didn't answer immediately. She took a sip of tea. She looked out the window. Then she looked at me with those grey eyes that always saw the truth. "Yes," she finally said. "Yes, I will go with you. Because you are more family to me than my own sister. Because you deserve to be happy. Because we still have good years ahead of us." That night, after Denise left, I sat alone in my room. I opened the drawer of my nightstand. I took out an old photograph. Catherine was 5 years old. We were at the park. She was laughing. I was carrying her. We were happy. I looked at that photograph for a long time. I remembered that girl, that version of my daughter that still existed somewhere in the past. And I allowed myself to feel sad. Not for the woman she became, but for the girl I lost along the way. Then I put the photograph away. I left it in the drawer. Because some memories are important to keep, but not to look at every day. My phone rang at midnight. It was Catherine. I let it ring. She called 5 more times. I let all the calls go to voicemail. The next morning, I listened to the messages. Her voice was broken, desperate. "Mum, please. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. It wasn't how you think. James manipulated me. His mother pressured me. I didn't want to hurt you. Please give me a chance. Just one." I deleted the messages. All of them. Because I had already heard enough lies. Because I had already given enough chances. Because I knew that if I answered, if I opened that door, even a crack, I would fall back into the same cycle. And I was no longer that woman. I was no longer the mother who gave everything without expecting anything. I was no longer the silent victim who accepted scraps of affection. I was Helen Miller, 69 years old, widowed, betrayed mother, but above all, a free woman. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The house sold in 3 weeks for $98,000, $3,000 more than expected. I distributed the furniture to charitable organizations. I donated clothes, books, objects that I no longer needed. Objects that only took up space and carried memories. Sam handled all the legal paperwork. He made sure that Catherine could not claim anything, that everything was protected, that my will was irrevocable. Denise sold her apartment. She had modest savings. Together we had enough to buy something small somewhere else, something cozy, something ours. We chose a coastal town, small, quiet, where the sea was visible from the windows and the air smelled of salt and freedom. The day we left, Catherine showed up at my door. She had lost weight. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired, defeated. "Mum," she said, "please, don't leave like this. Give me a chance to fix it." I looked at her. I really looked at her, looking for a trace of the daughter I loved, looking for sincerity, genuine regret. But I only saw fear. Fear of losing access to money. Fear of being alone with the consequences of her actions. Selfish fear, not true love. "Did you read my letter?" I asked. She answered, "Yes, and?" "And I understand why you're angry, but we all make mistakes. We all deserve a second chance." "I gave you hundreds of chances," I replied. "Every time you lied to me and I believed you. Every time you borrowed money from me knowing you wouldn't return it. Every time you cancelled plans with me. Those were chances, and you wasted them all." "But you are my mother." "I was your mother," I corrected her. Past tense. Because being a mother isn't just giving birth. It's being present. It's protecting. It's loving unconditionally. I did all that. You didn't. You chose James and Carol over me. Over and over. That was your choice. Now live with it. "So you just abandon me? After all this?" "No," I said calmly. "You abandoned me first. I'm just accepting the reality that you created." Denise left the house with the last boxes. She put them in the car. Then she stopped by my side. A solid presence. A reminder that I was not alone. "It's time to go," Denise said softly. I nodded. I looked at Catherine one last time. "I wish you the best," I said. And it was true. I didn't wish her harm. I just wanted her to be far from my life. I hope one day you understand what you lost. Not money, not an inheritance, but genuine love. That's what you really lost, and that can't be recovered with empty apologies. I got in the car. Denise started the engine. As we drove away, I saw Catherine in the rearview mirror, standing on the sidewalk, alone, watching me leave. And I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel remorse. I just felt peace. 5 months later, Denise and I lived in our little house by the sea. We woke up to the sound of the waves. We had coffee on the deck. We walked on the beach every afternoon. I made new friends, women my age with similar stories, women who had also been betrayed, abandoned, underestimated, but who had chosen to get up, move on, live. Catherine tried to contact me several more times, messages, letters, even a package with old photographs, as if that could change anything. I didn't answer any of them, because there was nothing else to say, because some doors, once closed, must remain that way. One afternoon, sitting on the deck watching the sunset, Denise asked me, "Do you ever regret it?" I thought about the question. I really thought about it. "No," I finally answered. "I don't regret it, because for the first time in decades, I am free. Free of expectations, free of manipulations, free of loving people who didn't love me back." And what comes next? I smiled. Now I live. I just live. For me, by myself, as I should have done a long time ago. That night, I wrote in my journal something I hadn't done since I was young. I wrote about everything that had happened, about the pain, about the betrayal, about the liberation. And I ended with a sentence that summarized everything I had learned. My name is no longer hers. My story is just beginning. I closed the journal. I looked at the dark sea, and for the first time in years, I felt complete. Not as a mother, not as a victim, not as a woman who existed to serve others, but as Helen. Just Helen. And that was more than enough.